The Ballad of the Great Varley. Here too and yonder a man lives on an isle at sea, and on his form I doth ponder, the form of the great William Varley. His stride is a mile, his thigh thick as a trunk. They say speed is relative to if you're racing this hunk. He's tall as a beanstalk, though not quite so thin. If you ever play him in frisbee, there is no way you can win. His jaw is carved granite, his complexion mature, though in his eyes there is mischief, yet a mischief that's pure. But all that is to say nothing at all, because the Varley's true beauty lives in his skull. Few truly understand the beauty of a mind, the nuance, the intricacy. Oh, how many are blind. A perfect complexion, I really don't care. A shapely figure, that's just a snare. Yet a mind well developed, now that's truly hot. What matters is the curves on your brain, and Varley, he's got a lot. When he cuts up the mince, the knife begins to feel dull. When he steps out in the sun, it's eclipsed by his skull. When he stares at a bush, it recognizes him as the sage. And when he goes to a lecture, they give him the stage. But it's not just talent that sets him apart. He also has character, grit, and that's just a start. To encapsulate Varley would be obscene and absurd. To sing every praise would demand every word. Yet it's my hope that with this yarn, at least I've conferred the greatness of Varley, to which I've referred. Is it odd that I felt significantly compelled to write that? Like I just had this very long desire, very strong desire, to talk about how great William is. Like it was nigh compulsion, XD. I think William is the only person that does that to me if I think about it, ... Of course, I bet he's mildly uncomfortable reading about how I'm attracted to his brain, but, what can I say? It's true, XD. If you haven't yet, you all actually need to meet William someday. Genuinely fantastic man. And I do mean overall. Like, don't get me wrong, his intelligence is certainly a big selling feature, but honestly, his well-rounded health and character is what really makes me wax enthusiastic. Beautiful man. I feel inspired and pushed to be a better human every time I'm around him. Anyway, to move on to the content of the relevant days, after finishing my last life update email, Amber alerted me to the fact that I am an idiot, manifested in the following manner. Recall how I could not recall the name of Molly's boyfriend, and thus ended up calling him Da Boy? Yes, well, gaze upon the very screenshot I literally included in my last email. Yeah, there's a screenshot. Yep. Yeah, so his name is in fact Matt XD. Who would have thunk, ... Yep, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. The next day I read my philosophy and ate food. I then met up with April and we talked for a few hours and that was really good. However, once I got home, I just stalled because there was this awkward window of time and I didn't know what to do with it. From there I went to D&D and forgot my computer, so when the time came for D&D, we had a powwow to decide what was to be done, and by a slim margin, the vote was to get snacks and then watch an anime movie I really like, which is not named the Spanish word for butter, it turns out, but rather is named after the main character of the show. Once again, who would have thunk, ... XD. After the movie ended, we all chatted, and everyone, save somewhat Benj, seem to agree with me that it's basically a masterpiece. See, this is the thing about anime. Like, yeah, there's a lot of garbage in there. But when anime is good, it is good. Like, I have never had anything move me the way some of my top anime can. And that's not because I haven't watched my fair share of live-action movies. It's just they can't convey emotion the way anime can, ... I understand that may sound counterintuitive. The animated fake thing can't portray emotions as well as the filmed real thing. But it's honestly true. Like, okay, sure, when Black Panther punches someone, it's cool and all, but like when One Punch Man punches someone, that's a whole different genre of experience, XD. The same goes for emotional punching. Live action just can't emotionally punch like anime can. Anyway, the superiority of anime aside, watch Maquia the Promised Flower Blooms, because it is a solid 9 out of 10 show and is just fantastically made. William also gave it a 9 when he watched it, so you know what I say is true. Wink. So yeah, we talked about the show some, and then just talked in general, and then I went home with my carry-on people in tow and slept. The next day, Noah showed up at my house, taking advantage of that intolerant social network, and I read philosophy while he did homework, and then a monumental thing happened. I finished my first anthology. Look at this bad boy. That is one bad boy. Wow. That's right. 675 words of top-tier scholarly metaphysics. 43 Google Doc pages of notes. Take that, philosophy. But see, it's a bit too early to gloat because I have another one to read, ... And not another anthology, mind you. That was always the plan. No, I have another metaphysics anthology to read. Why, might you ask, would one be stubborn enough to read 2 metaphysics anthologies? ... Well, let me tell you a brief tale. You see, the metaphysics anthology I just finished is actually the first edition of the Blackwell Companion Metaphysics Anthology, and I was actually given it by a coworker, Michael, like 3 or so years ago while I still worked at Illustrated Light. Of course, I saw that and was like, we're just going to put you on the shelf, ... because let's be honest, ain't nobody got time for that. But then I got cancer, and lol, apparently now I'm nobody because I got time for that. XD, that was actually kind of clever. XD, and I realized I really should read a metaphysics anthology if I want to truly gain mastery. Hence, I bought the easy version of the Blackwell Companion, started reading it, and was like, I already know all this, ... And so bereft of good content, I glanced over my shelves, saw the big boy Blackwell Companion, and was like, all right, let's give you a shot, ... And so I started reading it. And see, I looked it up to check its reputability and all, and I will say this is like the metaphysics anthology. Like there is no higher, more respected work as far as I can tell. So that means I've finally reached the very top echelons of philosophy, which is quite exciting. And of course, there was the second edition, because this is the first edition and it's been 40 or so years. And so I was like, all right, well, it's just the second edition, so I'll buy the second edition and read the first while I wait for the second to get here, and then once it arrives, I'll read the few new articles they've added since then, and that will be that. And like, it was a great plan, except it turns out it's not just a few articles they have replaced, it's literally over 2/3 of the article. The second edition is much less like a second edition, and actually more like a second book. And so now, here I am, having to read the entire first edition of the Blackwell Companion to Metaphysics, and I'm staring down the barrel of a very new and improved second edition, aka a second metaphysics anthology. But what's to be done? I'm committed now. I paid like $70 for the book, and I've got to know this stuff if I want to be up to date with where philosophy is these days. So what choice do I have? ... May the suffering begin. Round 2, XD. But hey, I did finish one anthology. Yay! ... After finishing the first anthology, Noah and I took a spice break to celebrate, aka we drove down to the spice shop in Fort Collins and bought this truffle spice, which is big good... And then we handed that spice off to Grace, who was making these potato things, which turned out pretty bad, honestly. Ugh. Though, to be fair, she was using vegan cheese, so that was definitely partly to blame. Then from there, I treated Noah to Chick-fil-A because I had a gift card and he paid for the spice, which was not all that cheap. And then we took a brief walk on campus before coming back and doing more of our respective tasks. I then listened to Jake's life update recording, and then sent the last life update out, and then after that, I read Noah and Sam's life updates, which were actually great. At some point, I might organize a life update week, where all of you just do a life update for 1 week of your life and send it to me, and then I send it back out to everyone. I mean, I would have to do it once, because it would be an obtuse amount of reading, but nevertheless, I think it would be fun... So, yeah, after all that, Noah left and I took a nap. I then went on a night drive, did MBTI research, and then slept. The next day was more philosophy, more MBTI research. Noah once again came over, and we co-studied for quite some time. After a few hours, Noah was going to King Soopers, and I had to wash my weighted blanket at the laundromat, so we decided our ends were aligned, and thus we journeyed together. However, on that journey, we discussed something I had been reading about, namely non-existent unicorns. Now first, let me say a little bit about unicorns. They don't exist. Or at least, that's what the leprechauns would like you to believe. No. So actually, there is this debate in philosophy about if there are non-existent objects, typically called the Melangian, or something like that, spelling is hard, XD, school of thought, where basically you can have underdefined and entailment-defying objects. For example, you could have a car that is red, but not colored. If you're confused, don't worry about it. Normal people should be, and non-normal people like me should probably be equally concerned that they aren't confused, and Melangian objects make perfect sense, ... Anyway, the point is we've got to say square circles don't exist somehow, and if there aren't square circles, then how can we say they don't exist? Hence, non-existent objects. Again, if you're confused, don't worry about it. This is all fairly tangential to the actual point. The for realsy point is Noah was equally like, what on earth are you saying, my guy, ... And so while we shopped and got my blanket washed, me and him had a very good conversation about unicorns and exactly how it was possible for one to go about saying they don't exist. And while Noah was very distracted, he actually couldn't shop or do anything the whole time we had the conversation, XD, he nevertheless was very quick on the uptake. And in fact, after only like 30 minutes or so, he independently came up with a rudimentary version of Russell's state description solution, which is widely regarded as the reason we don't need Melangian non-existent objects after all. So yeah, basically I was quite impressed and also Noah was a very good philosophical conversation partner, and I had a great time. Also, we are both immeasurable nerds, XD. As further evidence of my nerddom, I was so excited about Noah coming up with Russell's state descriptions and the conversation at hand, I totally forgot my blanket existed and left it at the dry cleaners. But yeah, that conversation was great. I then got home, ate food, did fanime, and then I went on a drive and listened to music. I also was going to drift, but at this point, most of the snow had melted, so I was having a hard time finding a still snowy parking lot. But then I did, so I was like, epic. So, of course, I picked up speed, got ready for the drift, and then realized, oh, shoot, this is not an empty parking lot, ... So it turns out the parking lot I had chosen hadn't been plowed for a reason. And that reason is there was a sidewalk elevated 3 or so inches off the ground and hidden in the snow, smack through the center of it. I can see where this is going. So here I am, barreling toward what is effectively a curb, and true to drifting form, the fact that I've slammed on my brakes is doing very little to slow me. And all I can think about is not again, ... I was going to say, I am getting some very serious PTSD flashbacks here, Alex. But then, because I hadn't gotten sideways yet and I was still heading straight on, when I actually hit the sidewalk, my car just bounced over. I mean, it was a ka-chunk of a bounce, don't get me wrong. But nevertheless, by some miracle, my car made it over and was all right. So yeah, Kirby's cousin tried to finish the job, but the Phoenix doesn't fall for the same trick twice. It only almost falls for the same trick twice, XD. So of course, after almost losing my car to my stupidity for a second time, I decided it might be best to call the drifting session there and drive back home while I still could. So I did that, ... From there, I drove to Southgate because Joe and Sam were playing some Magic and Joe wanted me to join them, so I was like, yeah, why not? But then when I got to Southgate, it turned out that Joe had summoned me there 30 minutes early, so I had arrived just in time for the games. Hence, though I had not intended to, I joined it and honestly, it was mildly fun. However, the big thing I noticed is my stamina is so far down. Like, holy cow, I get fatigued so quickly. And it was just super stark because ever since I started chemo, I haven't really sprinted. But man, I could feel the degradation of my body. And honestly, that super sucks. To physically feel the weakness in your once fairly buff legs is very disheartening. But yeah, anyway, I did that. It was moderately fun. Then Joe drove me to the Myers house where me, Joe, and Seth played a decent game of Magic. I was in the game, so to speak, for the whole time, which made it more fun, but still, Magic has just definitely lost its spark for me, so by the end it still felt kind of sloggy. Still, it was good. I don't regret my decision, and after we finished, Joe took me home and I slept. The next day, before class, I drove over to the laundromat and grabbed my blanket I forgot. I then went to classes, which are remarkably easy, and somewhat painfully so. Like in my global climate change class, the professor was teaching us what Kelvin is. Kelvin! And I know I literally and intentionally selected for the easiest classes possible for this semester, but nevertheless, I didn't foresee how much being easy would make it hard, XD. An odd paradox, in fact. ... So yeah, suffered through those. Then met up with Johanna for a while and talked about MBTI stuff, which was good. After that, I got home, wrote in my docs some, did something in between then and philosophy class, though I can't remember for the life of me what it was, and then taught philosophy class until I went to bed. Then came our favorite day, Friday, aka chemo day. This time around, I had Jake as my chemo buddy, and honestly, he was great. Yeah. Well, thanks. Actually, that's false. Joe figured out why my conversations with Jake in the past had been exhausting. And that's because I had been trying to TE direct his NE and keep things on a linear path. And let me tell you, if you've seen Jake's NE, it is strong. So trying to rein that bad boy in, you better bet, is exhausting, XD. Oh, you know it. Whew, you know it. But since the reason for the exhaustion had been discovered this time, I was just chill with where the conversation went, which is also particularly well suited to chemo anyway. And it was great. Honestly, Jake was a fantastic chemo buddy. Very good conversations both in quality and in topic. And I felt like I got to connect with him on a mind buddy to mind buddy level, which I'm not sure I've really got to do that before, ... In fact, we kept talking for an hour or so even after I got home because the conversation was that good. However, eventually the chemo caught up to me and I was like, yeah, I've got to go inside, ... Just because I was feeling bad, and so our conversation came to a close. From there, I passed the time with anime and baths as my body continued to notice it was poisoned. However, that night, I did do something abnormal in that I actually called Cheyenne Wolf spontaneously because we were emailing and I was like, this is so inefficient. Can we just call? And so we did, and we chatted about MBTI stuff for a while. After our chat, the verdict is she's an ESFJ, my OG guess being an ENFJ, but Cheyenne read the things and identified with an ESFJ much more, and honestly, I can believe it. Yeah, saying that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that was good, but I still felt chemo dead, so after a bit, we called it and I went to sleep. The next day, I was still fasting and I felt very nauseous, ... Probably not quite as nauseous as tofu chemo round. That's probably the worst I've felt, but definitely pretty nauseous. I'm likely going to need to start taking my anti-nausea meds soon, ... However, the issue is you really aren't supposed to take them on an empty stomach. So to take them would likely mean yeeting my intermittent fasting, which puts me in between a bit of a rock and a hard place, ... Well, it will sometime in the future at the very least. For right now, I'm between a rock and a very uncomfortable but still malleable, kind of like really cold memory foam place, XD. What? I then read some Nardis Magic Diamond book, which, as I think I've commented on before, is a bad book. I took some baths, did some MBTI research, and then the time came to finally break my fast, and my family bought me sushi, which was a nice change up, because unfortunately at this point, Qdoba has been corrupted. See, I knew this would happen, because all the people online who have had chemo said it would happen, XD. But now I associate Qdoba, but particularly chips and queso, with chemo, so it's gross now. Well, to clarify, burritos are more neutral. when I used to love them. And the chips and queso is what's particularly repulsive. So yeah, looks like we're moving on to my next food to ruin, sushi. Okay, actually, I should really think about this because just like with Qdoba chips and queso, I actually love sushi, ... So maybe I shouldn't ruin that food, ... Anyway, we ate sushi, broke fast. Then Johanna came over, we talked some, and then Grace and her did something while I took a nap. Because, lol, chemo, once I awoke, she was gone, and the family all did fanime. Starting season 2 of Link Click. And man, I've got to say, season 2 has a fire intro. Like, holy cow, it's super cool looking and very original. Link Click could turn out to be one of those really good animes. We'll have to see. After that, I read some philosophy, and then Grace went on an FI ramble, and I decided I'm going to at least put in an effort to get her to health. Though, since she's an FI user, I suspect it will be significantly harder than the FE users I've worked with in the past, ... Also, it's not like I just decided to do that. She asked me, so, just giving context here, XD. So yeah, anyway, I helped her with FI stuff for a while that night. Then I went to bed. The next morning, I had church, but instead of D&D, I went to some old person's house in Loveland for Molly's Cambodia send-off. See, she got an internship with Samaritan's Purse and will be the writer doing promotional work based on the stories on the ground. So honestly, pretty interesting. Here's a picture of the gathering I took from the floor. As for the gathering itself, it was fine, largely uninteresting, and I only kinda got to talk to Molly and Cable, so that was a touch sad. But I did my friend duty and attended. Once I got home, I took a nap, because once again, chemo, and then I had a great potato soup over at Neo and Sydney's. Then from there, since Sydney had an MS appointment the next day, me, Alan, Neo, and John all researched the available treatment options and their side effects for an hour or so. I'm not sure we turned up anything particularly new that Sydney didn't already know about, but still, I think she found the show of support valuable, if nothing else. After that, I then had a very direct and clear conversation with Sydney about the state of affairs between us. The truths were not all pleasant, but I feel we really communicated really well, and in a loving, defined by intent, not vibe, XD, way, so it was good. The conversation ended about 11, and once I got home, I ate some green tea mochi as I watched some anime, and then I went to sleep. The next day, I had begun to feel mostly better. Chemo usually starts to clear out for me around Monday. I read philosophy for a few hours, did fanime, took a walk, and listened to Personality Hacker. Then, once I got back, Grace, Johanna, and I walked to Five Guys as I finished my exposition of the MBTI. We ate fries, walked back, and then Grace got quite irritable, so we decided it would be best to call it for the day, XD. But even still, I basically got through everything, so I officially deemed Grace and Johanna graduated from Alex's School of MBTI Mastery. Not saying they have achieved mastery, mind you, but rather that if by some miracle they actually remember all the things I told them, then they would know as much as I do, XD. I then talked with Johanna a bit before she left, and then from there, I journeyed to D&D, remembering my computer this time. However, D&D definitely felt off. Neo and Benj were gone, and I could tell people weren't feeling it. So what we decided to do was basically a combat one-shot in which my beautiful golem was killed, ... And then from there, we role-played our characters as we purchased random ingredients from Walmart to then make into a dish. Now I, being the DM, had no character to play, thus I turned to my trusted favorite, Thales or Eridan XD. And while at first I think my gregarious play acting as a know-it-all wizard was well received, I think people definitely got tired of the character by the night's end, XD. I had a great time though, for what it's worth. However, the whole experience and a few others did make me consider if I actually have the vice of arrogance. Because, see, I come across as arrogant often. However, at least historically, I've only seen myself coming across as arrogant, not actually being arrogant. The question at hand, though, was if I actually am genuinely viciously arrogant. So at this point in time, I started doing some introspection and soul searching to see where my heart was with that. So yeah, did some work on that, and then I went to sleep. The next morning, I did some more introspection. Then I had all my super easy classes, which I slogged through. I then stared at people for 30 minutes for an assignment for one of my classes. Talked with Ben about MBTI stuff for quite a while. Then ate food and went to Ratio. And see, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Alex you've started putting a little apostrophe in went, like you would in can't. And that's not how you spell went. I'm not sure what you'd be abbreviating. Anyway, that keeps distracting me. And see, at Ratio, I then requested the aid of Alan to help me investigate this issue of arrogance, because I think in most cases, it's really helpful to have an outside perspective giving you input and grounding you when you're trying to deal with what could potentially be a sin issue. And because Alan is great, he agreed. Hence, we whiteboard fought over whether or not I was in fact arrogant. And honestly, it was really good. As for our conclusions, here's what we got. First, arrogance is a tough notion, as it's not straightforwardly clear what exactly it means. We decided to work with a definition vaguely along the lines of a view of superiority of one's value over others. But obviously, that's not rigorous. And see, arrogance is also quite close to things that I don't see as vicious, such as confidence or acknowledgement of objective achievement, e.g., I ran a 6-minute mile, etc. It seemed, however, the common denominator, at least as far as we saw it, of what made arrogance was that self-understanding of value superiority. So that's what we went with. As for if I view myself in that way, the general conclusion after an open examination of my intentional states was the vast majority of the time, no. Like I'm not saying I never slip into genuine arrogance. I think that does happen to me on the very rare occasion. But the vast majority of times, I'm just efficient, pragmatic, goal-oriented, insert other word that makes it feel like I don't think you're worth my time here, XD. And that unfortunately often conveys, I think I'm better than you, even when that's not true. So if any of you have felt that I just know, no, I don't actually think I'm more valuable than you, and I'm sorry when I come across that way, ... I've already started working on trying to tone down my self-confidence vibe, just so people don't get the wrong idea, and hopefully I can make some progress in this area. But yeah, overall the self-examination was really good, and I was really grateful for Alan's input, especially because there's some serious conflict of interest when you're trying to examine if your own intentions are vicious. And without him, I doubt I would have been able to see it as clearly, or come to a conclusion I can rest in. So yeah, we did that. It was really good. And then at the end, he gave me this book on philosophical modes of being to read, so I took that home with me. From there, I just did a bit more work on the arrogance thing, watched some anime, and then went to sleep. The next day, I got started reading that book Alan gave me. I ate food, then I walked to King Soopers to get some exercise. However, at this point, the anemia is really kicking in because I got fatigued really quick. And also, I got lightheaded and my vision got, I don't know how to describe it, brighter? You know how when you start to get lightheaded, everything just seems kind of out of focus and unclear? Like you can still see, but the world seems, I don't know, brighter and kind of fuzzy. I really don't know how else to convey this state. This is one of the few times it's happened to me, but during that walk, until I took a break, this was how things were. And may I just say, feeling my body degrade like this has been a bit rough for me. Like, I definitely value my athleticism. That's a big part of how I interact with the world and who I see myself as. So like not being able to run and heck, getting tired walking of all things, that super sucks. So yeah, that's probably just going to get worse as chemo goes on. And I've got 5 more cycles to go. So just some prayers in that domain would be appreciated. Anyway, I walked to King Soopers, bought chips, and walked back while listening to the Personality Hacker podcast. I then read philosophy, took a nap, and then I walked with William, the conversation that inspired this ballad, XD, before writing said ballad and then going to sleep. Thursday, I woke up, did phoneme, had classes, and did most of my homework during said class. Though music class I actually paid attention to. See, that really says how absolutely little I know about music. that the teacher was explaining what a scale was essentially news to me. Like, don't get me wrong, the different musical prodigies in my life have at various points tried to explain this all to me, but it hasn't really stuck. But honestly, I was actually interested as the teacher was talking about the difference between major and minor chords and stuff. She gave me a demonstration using the Happy Birthday song, and man, that song sounds depressing if you play it in minor, XD. So yeah, essentially what I'm saying is, unlike all my other classes, I'm actually learning stuff in my music appreciation class, which, again, just attests to my immense ignorance in this area. And I think it's actually instilling in me an appreciation for music, to the degree that, at some point, I might actually want to learn a thing or two, ... Now, to be fair, at the moment, I'm more undecided. Like, sure, maybe music is kind of cool, but like, why bother learning to play an instrument if it will take exorbitant amounts of time to be good at it? Doesn't bring really much objective value into the world, and I'm already surrounded by music gods that I would be 100% comparing myself to. Like, this seems like one of those scenarios where I either have to hardcore commit and swear that by my sweat and toil, I shall surpass even the musical gods up on Olympus. Johanna and Sydney would be torn asunder by my musical prowess. Or it's one of those cases where I look up at Olympus and the arduous and kind of pointless journey that would await me, and then go back to farming potatoes or whatever and be like, yeah, thanks, but no, ... And don't get me wrong, I'm a great potato farmer. And like most of the time, I'm pretty happy with that because, well, you can eat potatoes. And what good are aesthetically pleasing sounds anyway? But still, there's a part of me, a small sliver of a muse, that sees the gods as they play their pianos and French horns up on the clouds, and it's like, I must rise even above them. But then, of course, I'm reminded that these potatoes aren't going to farm themselves, and trying to beat prodigies at their game really isn't a good efficiency play, and also, I probably, still deciding, but probably, don't actually care enough to put in the work. As you can tell, I'm developing a bit of a tension within me, XD. Also, potatoes is analogous for philosophy, just in case that wasn't already clear to you, wink. All right, tangential god-conquering aside, music appreciation class is actually kind of interesting, and I'm becoming mildly interested in music for realsy. Keywords being mildly and also mildly, so like, don't get too excited there, all right, XD. After that, I then farmed potatoes. I think I might make this part of my actual jargon, XD, because, like, let's be honest, I could do philosophy or I could farm potatoes. Although, as we've already experienced with phoneme and phaneme, respectively, jargon clearly has some strong downsides in the long run, ... Yeah, as the narrator, I still do not know what phoneme and phaneme are. So, anyway, ... I don't need to. I'm not saying I need to, but, like, anyway, ... So maybe it's not actually worth it. Yeah, as I think about it, it's probably not actually worth it. But that's kind of sad because I feel like I'm missing my true calling. ... Oh well, I revoke my potential jargon change, but I do so begrudgingly ... I then went with Liam to the CSU Weeb Club for their biannual anime opening quiz, and get this, we won! First place, baby! See, this Sukuna banner now gracing my wall, that is symbolic of beating out over 70 weaves at anime opening quiz guessing. Oh, yeah! I've actually been waiting for this day for so long, and I'll be honest, it's mostly thanks to Liam, though I had some clutch moments. But we actually finally did it, and got first place at one of the CSU anime opening quizzes. We only placed first in the first round out of 5, which meant we got first and best pick of prizes, XD. And like all the other rounds, we didn't even make the podium, because you mess up 1 or 2 intros, and there's actually no recovering against weebs so strong in the force, XD. But still, I was very impressed with us. Also, not going to lie, the fact that we won was also a little bit concerning, ... Like, to beat out 35 teams of hardcore weebs definitely says something about me and Liam, ... Also, that fact that I either knew or had watched most of the anime from the Furry Friends section was also slightly disturbing, but on the plus side, I got a quiz question right for Kuma 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 Bear. So at least that made my regrettable life choices seem a bit more meaningful. XD. See, Kuma means bear in Japanese. So the anime is literally named the anime is literally named Bear 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 Bear, and it's about a girl in bear consume with two pet bears that basically goes around being an adventurer. And I assure you it's pretty, oh gosh, I assure you it's pretty unbearable. ... Just like that joke. XD. But the point is, it's one of those like C-tier anime whose existence I thought I would never have to remember. But then, here comes this question, and I get it right, because I have the show's intro on my anime playlist, XD. And it just made me feel so vindicated, you know? ... Kuma 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 Bear was worth it. Everything, ... all of it, ... it was all worth it, ... So yeah, existential validation of my poor life choices aside, it was fun. And I like winning, so that made it extra enjoyable. Here's a picture of all the weebs of CSU packed into one room. Oh boy. Do you see how many there are? And we beat all of them. That's right, ... Anyway, after I got home, went for a walk, bought tea and chips from Walmart because we were out of chamomile tea, and life without my chocolate and chamomile tea is a sad one. ... Then, with tea in hand, I did philosophy for 2 hours before watching a bit of anime and going to sleep. Now, as for yesterday, I woke up. I did quiet time, hung out with Dad with our usual Five Guys and table tennis combo. I hit some really good hits in table tennis. Then once I got home, I tried to call UC Health, then my insurance company, then the Radiology Center, then this random medical line trying to give me a free help I've fallen and I can't get up button, and then something plumbing, yeah, I called the wrong number, XD. Then UC Health again, then the radiology billing department, particularly only for them to then be closed. Yeah, it was at least an hour of me just calling people and them directing me to call other people, only to achieve actually nothing in the end. So that was frustrating. Then I took an emotional expression drive, aka FI work, also not related to the whole calling experience, XD, through Wrist Cannon, and it was actually super pretty. The snow was just starting to fall, too, so that was mega nice. ... Once I got back, I talked over Google Chats with Sydney, who apparently is going to get engaged soon. Oh my gosh, romance is a disease, and apparently now is just the prime time of contagion for my age group. Did I mention William has a girlfriend now too? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Alex. William, my ENTJ buddy, my mega-brained man, my one bastion of anti-romantic refuge. Even he has fallen prey to the feminine charm. Guys, I'm not going to lie. My odds aren't looking great here. ... Like, if the disease has infected even William, then who do I think I am that I might survive unscathed? I'm not saying I'm not determined to try, don't hear me wrong, but I'm just saying my confidence is a bit shattered. Sydney failing? Okay, sure. Amila, yeah, saw that coming. Molly? Granted. Caught me off guard, and a bit disturbing, but William, the great Varley, ... that rattles me to my bones, ... Also, though his story is fantastic, oh my gosh, I see so much of myself in his romance tale, it's not even funny. Okay, but it actually is super funny, XD. I don't know if I'm really at liberty to tell it all. Heck, at this point, I don't even know it all. But if I ever do fall for a girl, I better fall William style, because from what I heard, it was absolutely fantastic. Also, when we talked, he made a deliberate point that he's still committed to becoming my S-tier friend, and that our joint mission of concluing philosophy hasn't been eclipsed by the seduction of femininity. I actually love this man so much, ... All right, I've praised William enough this email. I actually need to stop, XD. The point is, Sydney too has fallen in love. And so, as we were talking, I was like, I actually have to meet you in person before your wedding. And so we have devised a very rough and potential plan that I might drive out to Maryland this summer to meet her in person for the first time. I mean, again, very loose as far as plans go, but it's on the radar as a possibility. So that was good. And honestly, it was just a good chat and nice to catch up. After that, I did Fanime, watched some Attack on Titan, because, ironically, the whole section about politics and not fighting Titans has me so much more intrigued than like anything else thus far, XD. I then went on a spontaneous drive with Grace to go get donuts, only for the donut shop we drove all the way to Greeley for to be closed. They explicitly said they were open 24 hours. So we just got donut holes from Walmart and drove back, XD. Still, it was a decent drive, and we had some good conversations. Then, from there, I basically just went to bed. Finally, as for today, I woke up, went to Emily's Hoffman's birthday party. Emily's Hoffman's birthday's... Oh, jeez. I'm sorry, guys. I went to Emily's Hoffman's baby's birthday party. I'll be honest. I mostly just because I wanted a social outlet, and I was bribed with the Myers attendance, a.k.a. Zero Baby Care. From there, the spontaneous plan developed for me to teach Lily, Karina, Sam, and Naomi Jungian stuff. I was originally just planning to teach Sam. So I went over to Naomi's house for the first time, I might add, and conducted a 2.5-hour intro to MBTI session, which I think was received well. Also, I actually recorded this one this time, and while it doesn't go into all the depth by any means, it does give a pretty good base level understanding for anyone interested in learning. Just let me know. And then, once I got home, I read some philosophy, watched some anime, took a nap, did Fanime with the fam, and then have been working on this till now. And that, to all who it concerns, is the end of this life update.